Well, I'm Caleb Vaughan with RVA Wealth Management, and I've got Dr. Jordan Hutchison with me.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having all of us down to Naples, Florida. We've had a good time.
It's been great weather. I can't complain. So it's a great conference to have, and it's great to be able to share with the community that we get to share all these ideas together.
Yeah. So one thing that came up in one of the sessions yesterday was the topic of cybersecurity. Can you talk a little bit about the technology tools that RFG has put together for our firm and others to use, and the technology cybersecurity practices that they implement to keep our clients safe?
Well, I'm not going to tell every secret because then I'm giving the keys to the door, basically, to access everything. But no, we have a very elaborate policies and procedures. We're required by the SEC to have certain policies in place. And we are constantly, even this week, which if you haven't checked your email yet, we do our own test every quarter because we're required by our own policies that we are going to do phishing tests. So the phishing is those emails that you get that say, hey, you need to update your LinkedIn profile, and it's a fake, not an email from LinkedIn, it's from somewhere else. And so we do those on a consistent basis because that's just one of our things that we want to keep everyone up to date and just be aware, because we make the joke that criminals are not taking time off and that there's AI models now that they can automate some of those. And so literally we were working with someone bought a domain that was similar to ours and was trying to send emails, and we got that shut down literally this morning.
That's scary stuff.
It is scary, and that's the value of having like a platform. We get to support you and all of RVA, that you get the access, that we have a team that's constantly monitoring it. Yep. Even though I'm here with you and, on stage talking with you and the rest of your team, that I've got a whole team that's back at the home office that's monitoring these things, and we get notifications because we have firewalls in your beautiful new office that I hope that all your clients get to come see, that I have yet to come see, so I'm going to have to make a trip to Richmond.
You should. It's a good place.
The monitoring, we have a firewall in place, all of these things, we have multiple layers that we constantly have, everything from the websites that we're going on, all of these things, and even on our vendors, we require our vendors to have, so the financial planning software or where your clients are logging in to see their account in that software, we require those vendors to have certain procedures in place so that there's not a risk of accessing that data. And so could happen at any time, so we're constantly monitoring it, and we even have fail-safes on the back end that if something did happen, they're not going to be able to access anything sensitive because we have multiple layers there.
So you guys are doing, all kinds of things. The technology companies that we utilize are also doing a lot, and then you're checking on them. But there's still the vulnerability from the client side, the end user side, that, the technology company can't completely control. So what can clients do to protect themselves?
Great question. And a lot of times I think that the best thing is for us to continue educating them. So educating your clients on it, that if something is questionable, or if it looks like, hey, I never asked Caleb to reset my, password for our client portal, then maybe just give them a call. And so I think there's a lot of things of just being overly cautious on it, because it is happening, and financial is a key place that they want to gain access to get our information. But a lot of it is the things that they're accessing, even from their side, if it's their custodian account, their investment account, since we have requirements on those, even when it's on your client's mobile app or they're accessing it through their laptop, if certain things aren't up to par on their computer, they won't be able to even access it. So it's us having to work all together, constantly looking for it. And even some of the vendors we work with, they're constantly releasing things. Like the other day, I learned that Fidelity actually is now using an AI model to help with some of the fraud. And they will, if the account is found to have some suspicious changes, expenses, whatever it is, if it's cash or if it's an investment account, something seems off, they will automatically put it on, shut down it on pause, call the client or call you, the advisor of the account, and be like, hey, we think that we've noticed something here. We're going to go ahead and change the account numbers, open up a new account, and they are going to be happening quick on it. And so I think that we're trying to almost put a bubble around the client so that we can protect them. But from the client standpoint, you've just got to stay vigilant on it, because if you, especially with the higher your wealth goes, the more of a prime.
Yeah, the more of a target is on your back.
That's right.
And which is why it's important for us to, have confidentiality and keep client data safe. You mentioned, how companies like Fidelity are using AI now to protect clients, but you also mentioned, the cyber criminals are coming after clients, and now they have AI as a tool as well. So that's, not only in the cybersecurity pockets, but it's also in the hackers' pockets. And can you talk a little bit about how they're using that? For example, the ability to maybe mimic somebody's voice.
There is. So it's such a dichotomy of the fact that there's the great that it's adding value to you as an advisor, giving you more tools and resources for your clients if they're using it for their job or their personal, like whatever, their hobbies, anything like that. There's all the value of that, but there's always going to be the people that make the bad choices. It's just like the trust that you develop with your client. You're having to do some of that because there might have been, they might have watched the Bernie Madoff documentary and they're like, wow, somebody can have this. That's why they trust you. They trust you and your team so much. But one of the ways that to protect some of that and to just be aware of it, especially with the voice side of it, is sometimes they have a special word that if you're going to do a wire, this is the file that we're going to put in our system, or that we know is almost like your safe word of like, hey, I'm going to call you. And that's why we build out certain procedures that I'm not going to take a wire from an email.
Yep.
That's just not going to happen. I'm going to pick up the phone, call the number that I know is your number, and make sure it's you. And then if something seems off, I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to call someone else. There's a secondary layer.
Yeah, and that's what makes this so scary is we could have one of those people now call in, and it might look like the client's phone number calling in because they've rerouted it and they've made it appear as if their phone number is actually a client's phone number. So we're extra careful and extra aware of some of these risks that are out there right now. And if there ever is a question, we might, maybe we should hang up and just call the client back at the number that we know is legitimate.
100%. And I know that it can be tedious, and sometimes from a client standpoint, I mean, I'm a client of an advisor, things like that seem like, all right, so I called you, why can't we just get this done? And even sometimes the criminal will be very assertive or aggressive like that to make it seem like they really are frustrated, like the client might be. But you have to put those policies and procedures and that different process in place, like, all right, great, I hear you. It's great to talk to you, Suzanne. Let me start that process and I'll call you right back.
Yep.
And then you call them from the number you actually know, or call the second person, both people that are involved in that account. And if they say, I don't need $50,000 to buy a car today, then you can immediately flag that account, flag that number, let us know. We can even block that email or wherever it came from so that it's completely blacklisted.
Yeah.
And that's something too we do on the back end, that when FINRA or the SEC finds things that have been fraud, we will go into our system and make sure all of that is documented and blocked so that it can't even get into our network.
And real quick, before we go to the last question, the issue of replicating voices is certainly a concern for us with, our clients' voices being replicated, but also on the client side, or anybody, especially, the elderly people with wealth tend to be the target for this kind of attack, is AI replicating a loved one's voice, especially a younger loved one who may not be as financially secure. These scams have existed for quite a while, but now with the idea that not only can they pretend to be your relative, but they can sound like them too.
For sure.
Very scary.
It is. And I actually have a very, very close to home experience with one of those, where one of those, I guess it was like an AI scammer fraud, called my wife's grandmother saying they needed money for a trip. And she was like, well, I know that you're not in London right now. But it sounded so real and sounded like you were really scared and like out of it. But I had a feeling that something was off. And sometimes it's so great to trust your intuition in those. And that even though it's a loved one that might need something or it's scary like that, The fact is that she immediately hung up, called my wife back on her actual cell phone number, and everything was fine, and found out. And I mean, it was pretty stressful for my my mother-in-law's mother. And so, because she's in her 80s, and it was just a scary moment. But
well done by her, because sometimes you get in the heat of the moment and you sort of, it can be easy for a lot of people to let caution go to the wind. You get caught up in sort of and that's what those scammers are trying to take advantage of.
They are. You're vulnerable in that state. You're emotional in that. And it's one of those things we just have to constantly stay educated. And if the process feels a little laborious, it's to just be extra careful, because we actually care about your money and we want to care about your well-being.
Yeah. So one last item, we'll shift gears a little bit here on cybersecurity, but password managers. We've got a lot of clients that have basically a handwritten note or notebook of passwords. What is your opinion of the security of that, and what might somebody do instead if that's not the best solution?
So I will say that if someone is very vigilant about the notebook, which I am the son of a father that very much so believes in his notebook because he thinks it's off the grid, it's better.
It may not be totally wrong.
And he has some truth to that. And so what I've told him is keep it in the safe. So if you don't want to have anything in there, I get it. There's a lot of stress with that. However, I think that it is perfectly secure if he did use one of the programs that we're about to talk about. But he does keep it in a safe now. Him, my mother, and all of us know the password, the code to the safe. That we're the only ones that do. So if we did need access in the event that something happened, we could. However, I still don't think that's arguably the best. But if you did use one of them, we are a fan of either using one. If you're using Google Chrome as your browser, that's one to use.
Perfectly sufficient solution. You just may need to have a Gmail account, I suppose.
Correct. You might, if you have a Gmail account and you're already using it, I think that it's a great one to use because it's already embedded into that browser.
And then it floats across all of your devices, correct?
Correct. So if you're using on multiple computers, or if you're using actually on your phone, it'll all match up together, and it'll recognize too that because when you're setting that up, if something's off, it'll even make you do certain second layer. If it's like, you've never searched this, or you're accessing me from a different location. So your IP address is pinging in Oklahoma, but 90% of the time you're based in Virginia. So what's going on here? And so they'll ask you to maybe put in your password again. So there is secure layers to it.
Yeah.
And some of the other ones as well, like KeyPass, LastPass, and Bitward is another one that we recommend. That all of those are great ones to use, and that they're constantly upping their security just to be vigilant about it as well.
That's great. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you for sharing.
I always love our chats.
Is there anything else before we sign off that you would share with our clients on cybersecurity or management of technology systems that retirees or even young professionals could use to protect themselves that they might not already be thinking about?
Yeah, I would say the last thing is, you've got to stay educated and vigilant on it, and that if anything does feel like it's wrong or off, completely feel like deleting that email or calling to confirm it, because I think that that's just the world we're going to have to live in with the way technology is that we've always got to have that human touch to it. And if it's something unique, if it's one of your clients and they're like, hey, I don't remember us talking about this, can you refresh my mind because we talked about a lot of things, just give you a call, because I think that's truly where the value that you add is, that you are ultimately part of the cybersecurity piece.
Absolutely.
That you can help with that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks, Kel.